This is quickly becoming the most popular, and in my opinion, it's the best build for the most amount of players within Diablo Immortal. And this is regarding the new class Blood Knight. If you watched the recent stream where I did a collab with Misery Hates Company, this is the build that we spent a fair amount of time talking about, that we said does kind of AoE or continual damage around your character and allows you to move quickly from player to player. I'll leave a timestamp to the gameplay at the end, but I want to cover the essences and explain why these choices are the best choices in my opinion, give everybody an overview of the build as everybody's trying to collect pieces, see if something you want to pursue or a build that might work for you. So for the helm, this is one of the helms that Misery Hates Company really made a point to mention, and this is Horns of the Hexed. This causes the Siphon Blood to no longer be channeled. This is going to allow you to use your Siphon Blood and just move around, okay? Dramatically transforming this ability, making it just more mobile in general, which is a big issue for the Blood Knight class. For the chest piece, we're just increasing our Swarm of Bats damage, and on shoulders, we're now transforming Swarm of Bats, and this is going to engulf us in a cloud of bats. What it really does is put around an AoE aura around you, very similar to what the Siphon Blood is going to do. So you can have two abilities that you can just activate an AoE aura and continue to move around with. For pants, we're adding some poison damage. This is just going to boost the set pieces that we're using. We'll talk about those shortly. In the weapon slots, we're using the Whirling Strike Essence, which is going to cause enemies to burn, adding again a continual component, as well as causing Siphon Blood after damaging enemies 3 times is going to cause them to hemorrhage for additional damage as well. Now for the offhand slots, we're using 2 Shadow's Edge essences, and it's important to note that at the current state of the game, there are no essences for Ravage. If you prefer using Ravage in this build, for one reason or another, the offhand essences don't matter. There's no other choice unless you're running Shadow's Edge. These essences, in general, just add additional damage. It's fairly rare that you might hit a mob 4 times to even get the effect of this one, unless it's, say, an Ancient or something of that nature. If you're farming in a party, it's even less rare because other people will be damaging the mob. And the one here is fairly useful. It's going to cause 2 blades to ricochet out, randomly targeting nearby enemies and dealing just additional kind of AoE or splash damage. Again, Shadow's Edge not crucial. You can swap this for Ravage. What I do want to mention is since there are no essences available for Ravage, most of the builds that you see will include the ones for Shadow's Edge. In the off chance that you have these slots awakened, you can actually get 20% additional damage from this, and this really makes Shadow's Edge a clear winner in terms of which primary to use. Another factor of Ravage is as effective as the knockback on the ultimate is for situations like, say, PvP, it's not that great in PvE, right? Ravage is limited to being a melee swing, so if you get in there, knock an enemy back, well, you then have to reposition to hit them again. So the ultimate is good and very nice in a PvP situation to knock back players and interrupt them, but in PvE can almost be detrimental in certain points, and the shield that you get from activating isn't quite as useful. So at least for the time being, you're going to see a lot of videos really just mention Shadow's Edge, and due to the lack of essences, you're going to see them in the offhand slots over other choices. Another thing I mentioned in the collab video is that there aren't a whole lot of abilities affected by the offhand. You have Skewer, Umbral Lance, Shadow's Edge, and Wave of Blood. That's it. So if you aren't using one of those 4 skills, you're not going to see something there that's beneficial. So just wanted to put that info out there for anybody that's wondering why they keep seeing the same thing over and over. It's not that Shadow's Edge is really dominant over Ravage, so to speak. It's really just that you have the ability to get extra damage from the Awakening property, and there's really no other choice a lot of the times. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some set options now. I'd like to actually start with the 2-piece, and this is going to be Vithu's. And the reason for that is it's going to extend the duration of all beneficial effects on you or your party members. Now, in this case, all of our abilities only affect us, so the party members aren't really a factor, but this does a lot for us. And let's take a look at the abilities now. The one ability that doesn't have an essence attached to it is Sanguinate, but the other 3 abilities and the primary we've covered so far. So our Whirling Strike is not going to get any effect from Vithu's. However, our Siphon Blood is going to have an increased duration in which we have this aura around us. And I'll give this a couple of seconds to wear off just so that you don't get the graphic confused with Swarm of Bats. Since the class is new, I think some people may want to see it. So here's Swarm of Bats, and both of these auras can actually be used at the same time. So if you're facing an elite or a yellow mob, something that you want to do a little bit more damage, you don't have to alternate these, okay? You can actually pop both of them at the exact same time and get additional damage going. So the Vithu is really going to add to that. Another thing I want to mention here has to do with Sanguinate. I'm going to pop this. You can see it's really similar to the Necromancer Wraith form, except for there's one crucial difference when you go and look at the skill. And that is, it is a dash and a multiple stage ability, okay? It is not a buff like Wraithform is. When we use Vithus with Wraithform, we do actually get extended duration. And the reason this is important is because we have increased movement speed from this skill. So if we're able to extend the duration of this, we'd be able to travel a little bit further. However, we don't get any effect from that. Just want to mention that so everybody's aware of that. You don't expect this to last any longer. However, you don't lose anything, obviously, by equipping the set. So you can still transform, and then you can use the dash to get to where you need to be. Honestly, I don't really notice having any issues. Once you have this skill in your bar, you'll be able to get to any pack that you want. You can travel in the form and then use a dash if a pack hasn't respawned in time, getting to the following pack and so forth. So it shouldn't be an issue, and you don't really need any additional time to do so. Maybe once in a rare while it's a factor, but it shouldn't be for the most part. Now, for 4-piece options, you've got 2 choices. 3, actually, if you really want to get kind of innovative here. So you can run the Banquet set, and this is going to give you some additional damage from enemies that have already been hit by the continual effects, and this does include Whirling Strike. So this will be all 3 of your damage abilities that you have on the skill bar, and you have increased critical hit chance, and certainly you're going to be in melee range, so you're going to be nearby these enemies, and that's a good option. I actually think the preferred and better option for the vast majority of players is going to be 4-piece Grace. You're going to get 15% increased damage even from the first hit, as opposed to needing one to then proc the bonus. And on top of that, every time you deal 5 instances of damage to the target, you'll get a burst damage as well. And this is pretty substantial for low resonance or mid resonance players, and that's why I think this is really the better choice. So overall, I think that this 4-piece Grace going to do a lot. And like I said, if you're doubling up on Siphon Blood and Swarm of Bats on a stronger target, you can really proc the number of times that this goes off pretty effectively. The final choice that you have, say you don't have all the sets, whatever it may be, or you're just looking for certain things on your set pieces, well, you can run 2-piece Grace and 2-piece Banquet, right? You can double dip on these 15% damage bonuses, and they do stack, and that will still affect the same 3 skills on your loadout. So that's an option as well. Again, just to be clear, I think that the 4-piece Grace paired with the 2-piece Vithus is the best choice for this build. So one nice thing about this build is you can use a variety of Paragon trees. Now, I'm actually using Weaver. That's my personal choice, but this would vary depending on the location that I'm farming. If I felt like my kill streaks were going to drop off, I would actually prefer Massacre, but in a smaller circle where you can get from pack to pack. Something like Massacre isn't quite needed. You could run Treasure Hunter or Weaver, like I said, or whatever you may feel like. Now, basically, you're just going to the groups and using these large AoE skills, right? So I've got mobility from the Sanguinate if I need to kind of get there with the dash. I can use my Whirling Strike to hit everything around me. Swarm of Bats will hit everything that's nearby. Siphon Blood, I can double dip with this as well. If I have a stronger pack, say an Ancient, anything like that, I can activate both the Siphon Blood and the Swarm of Bats at the same time. And a great part of this build is how mindless it is. I like to always mention this when it's actually a part of the build, and that kill streak may have dropped off because I was not holding on my focus. It is definitely capable of holding the kill streak in an area like this. But back to what I was saying about being a mindless build, this is great if you're somebody that likes to farm while you're watching TV, YouTube videos, whatever the case may be. This is actually a big factor for a lot of people determining when they kind of make their loadout. If they want to grind, if they want to pay a lot of attention, manage their cooldowns and so forth, well, this build is super simple. You just hit whatever's available. They're all large AoEs around you. They all have bonus damage from your set pieces. And then you've got your one mobility skill to use if you need to get from one spot to another. Say if you get walled like that, you can go around and still get to the next pack, keep that kill streak and so forth. And like I said, feel free to use different Paragon trees. It's in no way limited to Weaver, which I'm using here. I just find that there is a fair amount of auto attacks. And if you're a lower or mid resonance player, you'll probably use more auto attacks than you even see me doing, because you're going to want to finish up and clear these packs out as you go from pack to pack. This also really shows off the lack of mobility in general that this class has. There are some more mobile builds. Unfortunately, they tend to only work for higher resonance players, at least from what I've seen so far. I will cover those as well, and then you can kind of test the limits of whether it's a build that might work for you. But that'll be a separate video, of course. But I just want to mention that if you're a higher resonance player, don't feel like you're trapped in this build. This is just easily the most popular build because it works for players of all resonance at this point. So a lot of people are running this, and if you haven't seen it before, well, now you have. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.